You are watching Access LaPorte County Channel 97. Coming up next is the July 30th meeting of the Michigan City Common Council Workshop. You can find more information for this meeting at www.accesslaportecounty.org.
Start a little bit. So I'm Greg Coulter. I'm the councilman working on the DORA legislation. We've got Tim Beatrice as a co-sponsor, and then Jay-Z Lee is also a co-sponsor. So in my mind, we would have the agenda up right now, and I talk about that. So in a couple seconds, we'll do that. But let's go around the room and just say names and affiliations so that we know an idea of who's in the room and what they're representing. So Don, you want to start off?
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Don Przybylski, City Councilman at large and President of the City Council.
Sign a sheet.
Oh, did we need one?
I mean, do you want?
I did not.
Because if you report it, you can put the people who attended.
It sounds like I should do that.
I'll pass
Thank
it
you.
around and they can write their names on it.
I'm new at this.
Good job, Rick. Good job. I'm sorry.
He's still a rookie. Kurt, did you get to go yet?
Nope.
Okay, cool.
Kurt Dillons, president of the Michigan City Chamber.
You starting to sign your sheet down? I'll just go ahead and turn pass it around and
Okay, got it.
I'll pick it up and give it to them.
Judy Garrels, GM, Judy Garrels, sorry. Judy Garrels, GM of Uptown Social, 907 Franklin. Lisa Corey, I'm the director of the Michigan City Main Street Association.
Nicole Bissonette, owner of Fish Camp in East, and Joan Brady's.
Victor Terry, owner of Harbor Country Adventures.
Zara Khan, I'm part of the Main Street Association on the board of directors.
Carlton Bishop, LaPorte County Economic Development.
Taylor Scott, BAC Marketing.
I'm Scott Mellon, I'm a curious citizen.
Jim Beatrice, City Council.
Christopher Willoughby, partner at Reggie Nelson and James, and also one of the owners of Digital Del Lago.
Yeah, this is Tommy Kolovic from 1316 Ohio Street.
Dakota Euler, city resident.
Hi, I'm Daisy Lee, City Council, Second Ward.
Tramell Rags, Paris Law Firm, we represent the Michigan City Common Council.
And Tristan and Justin, not to spoil your thunder, just introduce yourselves extremely quickly.
Introduce us.
Yeah.
I'm Anna Racke, and I'm manager of Bridges, Lawrence, and Grill.
And I'm Justin Post, the president of the Michigan City Main Street Association and general manager of Shoreline Brewery.
Brian Gabney, City Council.
Oh, I skipped you. I'm so
Sorry
sorry.
about it.
And then Tracy, just your name and
Tracy Tillman, City Council.
thank you. So we're continuing to work through those technical difficulties. So the agenda is in front of everybody on that handout that everyone should have. Does anybody not have like 3 in the back? Okay. So we'll start with introductions very quickly, so we've accomplished that. I want to explain what a DORA is and just talk through some of the examples. Really hope we get that screen up. And then have a quick conversation about how it's going in other places. Other people might have visited a DORA in another state or in Indiana. After that, we'll do some work on our proposed ordinance and just talk through some of the changes we might be able to make. Computers keep doing things. And then some closing thoughts. And there's another workshop in this room at 6:10 or something like it, so we'll be done in 6. So what is a DORA? So does anybody not have a familiarity with a DORA? I think we're all pretty caught up on what it is. So it's a map of an area that is bound, and people can purchase a drink at a restaurant or a temporary vendor and walk out into the street with it to either shop or socialize, support local businesses, and one of the benefits too is that like on Saturday, obviously not this Saturday, but with the concept of the boat races and the boat parade, we wouldn't need to have our beer garden fenced in. It would be the entire event. You'd be able to walk around with your alcohol and not just in the 7th Street Plaza. You'd be able to go everywhere with it. So that's a clear benefit. And then on the lakefront, there's the clear benefit of being able to support any of our local businesses and walk between them, walk down to the lighthouse. So that's a gist of what we're supporting here. So with that, the reason that we're able to do this now in Indiana, because it was not in our legislation a couple years ago, is that some businesses, I think in Fort Wayne, were petitioning their representatives to make it a thing that we can do in Indiana. So that started there. They're basing that off of the 90 DORAs that are existing in Ohio. They have so many that they look at that. They basically have one in every county. So their list is pretty long. There's 90 of them. In Michigan, there's 60 DORA districts, ranging, thank you so much as well.
You're welcome.
Ranging from like Traverse City to all the way to Grand Rapids and all those large cities in Michigan. And the reason that there aren't too many here in Indiana is that law was passed maybe a year ago.
Right.
So most of the cities are just kind of in the process of catching up and getting those going. I forgot your name, but you said you were the one in Lafayette today?
Yes.
So how was that? What was the general feeling there?
Well, I attended it was a coffee shop and doubles as a wine bar at some point during the day, serves food, it's wonderful. And it's much like what we're doing here. I would describe them as probably being in the middle of what we're doing and what a lot of us and people comment about St. Joe. So it's wonderful, and you know, they have all the challenges and the naysayers and the worries and the people that are bottom line trying to not only help out and truly, it's someone who works it morning to night, the owner, and had an opportunity to speak to her, but also the sense of community. So I think a lot of the things that you have been reporting, and first before I go further with that, I want to say thank you for doing this, because it's, you know, obviously most of us are aware, but thank you for all your hard work, and certainly many of the things that you have put out, many of the things you've said have mirrored what my experience was as a patron today.
Awesome, yeah. So, the benefits of the DORA, like you can imagine, back before COVID, people were out and about on First Fridays, going up and down Franklin Street, chatting with their friends, and then COVID kind of ripped that apart for a couple of years. So this is a great way to just inject some life into our downtown, something different to do that costs almost no money, that also brings in money. And it comes with a lot of limitations to make sure it works safely for everybody. So those are operating hours. No one's going to be going around at 9 a.m. with a DORA cup, causing problems. And then the responsible serving, that's something I talked a lot about on Saturday. So Saturday I had the opportunity to talk to a lot of the businesses on Main Street, or Franklin, and then around the lakefront. And one of the questions they kept going back to is like, how do we know that other places aren't over-serving people and that they're going to come in drunk? One of the quick answers for that is that can happen now already. A lot of the things that change with this aren't really big changes. Somebody can go to Mady's and get 10 drinks and wander over to Fish Camp and have, that those bartenders are trained to make sure that no one's being overserved. So whether or not that person's trying to get a DORA cup at Fish Camp, or I keep using this example.
It's fine. I'll take it.
Free advertising, there you go, yeah. Those bartenders will know not to serve that person in a DORA cup or a regular cup either way. So bartenders are trained not to make sure that people aren't falling over themselves drunk in the street. Another limitation that helps make sure that this is a secure, easily run policy, ordinance is that there's the single cup policy. So I can pass these around. Goodness gracious. The first one comes from Winona Lake, and I'll do one on each side. And then the second one is out of Warsaw, and those are in 2 different sizes, and we'll go around together. So you get your cup, the bartender fills up the cup, and then it has to be in this cup. So then when you go back and you get another one, you get a new cup with a new drink in it. You can't refill it out on the street. So you can imagine that most of our downtown businesses, like it's not $1.50 for a Miller Lite down there. It's some quality stuff that people are gonna have to pay a little bit more. So again, one more limitation on how you're not gonna have people falling over themselves drunk on the street. And then the business accountability, which kind of circles back to the bartender responsibility, but adds a level where businesses will have to apply to get into the DORA. It'll be very agreeable. It's just like giving you permission. That way, if there is a problem, we can take that away. So if we keep finding cups all around Fish Camp, we'll take Fish Camp's license away, and then they won't be able to participate anymore.
Are you gonna have like a designation, whether it be Sharpie or anything, on the bottom of the cup to designate from where the drink was purchased?
Great question. So in Michigan with the social districts, that's part of the requirement. So then they would look at it and they would have that it's bought today, and my bartender Tracy was the one who served me. That way, when I'm in my car and I get pulled over, they know to go back to Tracy and get a finger at her chest about how she messed up under the server's license. Yeah.
So it'd be like a dot sticker with a date?
That exists in Michigan. It does not exist in Indiana.
Pardon me?
So that's not part of the ordinance
Okay, I'm
in
just
Indiana.
curious if that's
Sorry,
part of the
that would be
thing.
misleading. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, Tommy.
Yeah, this is Tommy Kolovic from 1316 Ohio Street. First of all, we have ordinances right now on the books that prohibit every bit of this. I'm not going to sit here and read this to you. You know, the state has basically nullified those ordinances by allowing this. And, there's really no argument against it. We need to attach some strings to this. I don't know how many establishments are going to be anticipating this. Well, how about charging a $1,000 annual fee for every establishment that's going to be full participant, and charge a patron $1 surcharge for every drink they take out of your establishment. This fee could go to pay for the drug treatment costs for if a city employee chooses to violate the city's drug policy. I don't know how many's actually read the city's drug policy here. I have. I'd like to know. I'd like to additionally put this in to give our municipal employees a big fat raise. That's all I have to say about this. I'm going to go to the school board meeting and we're going to do a number on them. Thank you.
Thanks, Tommy. Any other questions about the limitations? Yes, Tracy. Sean.
Well, not necessarily with the limitation, but, well, it is, under the operating of hours. And as I stated before, I am in support of this, and hopefully that this all moves forward. But one question that arises with me is, due to that, patrons will be able to freely go within those perimeters. Do you foresee it being an issue also because a lot of the establishment has had concerns with the flux, the overflow of homeless people? Do you think that's going to inhibit or prohibit anyone that wants to participate in doing that or being out, or do you think that's going to possibly bring more into that area?
That's a good question, and it's something that we'll have to see when it happens. Generally speaking, I haven't seen, like when I go to Warsaw to look at theirs, there's an influx of homelessness, but obviously that's super new. And most of these are in downtown anyway, so it's kind of hard to give a number on that. But I think the question you're asking is if they're going to be drinking out of these door cups. So most homeless people can afford a $10 margarita or a $5 draft beer. So that's a thing.
Well,
and then,
well, not necessarily them actually partaking in a beverage,
okay.
But I know that we've had complaints brought to us because they're just within the areas down in the business areas in their front of their storefronts and things of that nature.
Yeah.
Do you foresee that possibly happening, other than we'll just have to wait and see?
We'll just have to wait and see. And then I think maybe part of your question too is that if this is wildly successful, the downtown one, I mean the lakefront one, there aren't very many people experiencing homelessness over there. But for the downtown one, if this is wildly successful, there's going to be a bunch of people walking around, and that will probably drive them out a little bit. I think you get a little bit more comfortable waiting on the bench all day when no one else is walking past you, so that could be an answer.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am, in the back.
It's kind of along those lines, but maybe something totally different as far as a perception. And so, this is a perception that says the haves and the have-nots. If you can afford a $12 margarita, then you get to walk on the street and drink. You're a homeless person, you don't get to. But there are maybe city residents that it's their street and they don't want to pay $12 for a margarita, but they want to walk on the street with their margarita. It's their street too. And so there's inequity here that, or there could be perceived this level of inequity of, oh, well, those are the people that can, and those are the people that can't. And the reason they can is there's a financial and class distinction among those people. And is that something that we want to portray in our community? I'm just throwing that
That's an
out.
interesting consideration. I'll write that down. Yeah. Because sure with happy hours too. I don't know how many downtown businesses have jumped on that. The state has been changing our liquor laws from left and right. So with happy hours, that $12 margarita could be $6. So from 3 to 6, they might have a really good deal.
But I don't think you should transfer that into this program.
Okay.
I mean, if you have a happy hour, I don't personally think that you should be walking out with discount drinks.
I think the difference between having the door up and people just randomly walking down the street is there's the assumption that all of us, whoever in this room holds a liquor license, has employees that have been taking training and have licenses by the state, and that, I'm not saying every bar owner in the world is responsible, but there's a level of responsibility. I'm not overserving my patrons because you're coming back for my insurance. You get in an accident, you're suing me. The guy who can just inadvertently, drink a half a bottle of Fireball and stroll down the street, who's policing him?
Yeah.
Nobody's, I think that's the assumption of this whole thing is that leaving it to the businesses, we're responsible business owners. We've all been issued liquor licenses, our people are trained, that you assume that we're all going to do the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
You have none of that in place. You just let people willy-nilly walk all over town, drink whatever they want.
Yeah. So we have one more and another one, and then I think I wanted to move on to the next slide. Yeah.
No, I just kind of to tie into that with the responsibility of serving. Is it gonna be the understanding that if I have this Dora cup, just because I have this Dora cup, if I go to a new establishment, I'm still gonna be carded and make sure I'm of legal drinking age, correct?
It's responsible of every restaurant to do that, no matter
Right.
what. If you look under 40, you're getting carded, and I'm going to assess if you appear to be inebriated or not. I mean, I had to dock one of my bartenders for a week because she served somebody 2 martinis in 60 minutes, and big ones, so, I mean, responsible restaurant owners and bar owners or whatever are gonna be on top of that, because exactly as Vic said, it's our liability. And we don't want any X marks with excise. I mean, this is our livelihood. This is the way we support our families. So there'll be absolutely no risk taking on my part.
Awesome. And then,
Well, I just wanted to clarify, Lafayette is in the process of doing theirs, but they're further along. So that was one, as you asked with my experience.
There we go.
And
Okay,
that's
cool.
theirs, number one. Number two, with the accountability, I think our businesses are, and echoing all of their sentiments, it's not only our livelihood and our license, but our employees' livelihood. If they don't have their serving permits and they're required to go through training, and yes, there's irresponsible or things do happen, but that isn't the norm, and it's not my experience. And the accountability is with each other, and it's wonderful that I think the sense of community of, hey, go to fish camp, try that, they have a wonderful this. I do think that it's going to lead to that, but our business is so regulated on the alcohol side that I think there's an extra hammer here because many of our businesses have the riverfront license. So not only are we subject to city ordinances and local law enforcement, and not that we want anything to add to taxing the resources of the city, right? But then we also have the ATC, we have excise, and we have the ability to have our licenses revoked by the city outside of the ATC, not renewing those. So there is a lot of restrictions, and there's a lot, Mr. Beatry and I were speaking, there's a lot of process left here. This is the first stage, right? Then you have to go to downstate and get approved. And then you have to apply and get approved by whoever the designated body is going to be to approve these licenses. So I don't think any of this is blasé, but it isn't anything different than me being able to leave here and walk over to Lighthouse Liquors and have a beverage of my choice and pour it in my cup, and nobody's any the wiser. This is certainly much more regulated than it is now.
Much more regulated.
And if I can just add real quick, what the benefit is for the restaurants, I believe within this district, like me during COVID, the governor allowed takeout during COVID only. Well, the benefit for me was that, we were socially distancing, so I had half my restaurant sat, which means I had an hour and a half wait of people waiting to get in the door. Well, they could have driven, to New Buffalo. Well, actually, that was closed down completely, but they could have driven elsewhere. But instead, I had the ability to sell them a Miller Lite, or to sell them, a cocktail where they could walk out the door and walk to the Lighthouse, or go sit on a bench in Washington Park, get a taxi, and then come back to dine. So that's the feel we're looking for. It's not, this public inebriation where you can walk around and get drunk.
Yeah.
It's a relaxing evening to stay within our boundaries.
Yeah. So I'm glad that we've got so many business owners here who are adamant that they're going to make sure that they follow the various rules that are already in place.
Well, we have to, it's our livelihood, it's the law, we don't want riffraff surrounding our businesses. We all work together, I mean, we don't want that.
There's a bar in Westville that lost their liquor license and now they're a family restaurant, and that's not going to last long. So
Right.
you guys don't want that either.
Add one other thing with the homelessness. It isn't a problem for our restaurant. And at worst, what we see is somebody who comes in and is hungry. Nobody that is seeking to have drinks. And I know for certain that we feed more than anybody who comes in worried about having a drink. And I see containers from other restaurants that are doing the same thing, trying not to throw food away, not turning people away. So the worries about, and valid, haves and have nots, that hasn't been my experience based on how we operate. And walking to work, walking around the downtown and seeing the containers from other restaurants. I know that's happening for others as well.
Skyler.
Greg, I came in late, but this isn't is this for just special occasions, special events? Can you talk a little about how other places do it? Do they do it every day?
We've got it currently drafted up that, did we change the hours yet?
No, the hours are still.
The current draft says you can get one starting at noon and then it goes till midnight. Most of our restaurants open at 11. I think we should start it at 11, and most of our, some will be 10, maybe we need to do 10, I don't know. And then almost all of them in that area are closed by 10 or 11 anyways, except for this guy. But,
And that's Monday through Sunday?
Monday through Sunday, which we can change. I mean, if there's demand to change some of those small details, we could do that. So you all get to see the cups that went around from Warsaw. They also created a nice map. So when you scan the QR code, that's where it goes, is to this map. If we decided to do something a little more detailed than this, that would be cool, because when you look at this, there's no restaurants on there. You can't see where you can go shopping or anything, so that's just an example. But when you're walking around, so for example, last week I was able to visit Warsaw and just kind of experience their Dora, which on a Monday night is not that exciting. But you find a restaurant that's got the Dora permission on it, and then the bartenders all have this guide that they have to follow so that they know that the 60-ounce cup is for beer, the 12 ounce is for wine and mixed drinks on down. And then when you're walking around the district and you reach Main Street up at the top, and you can't cross Main Street, there's a sign that says no alcohol beyond this point, and then they throw in another QR code too. So that would be a similar thing around here, where maybe on the beaches we would have a sign that says no alcohol beyond this point. And then downtown on Washington Street or on Pine, 4th or 11th, you would see those little signs off to the right about no alcohol beyond this point. So not a huge eyesore, especially when you think about, like, for some of these events that we have in Washington Park or along Franklin Street, that we have to put up that ugly orange snow fencing and spend money on it and resources and then put that fencing away somewhere for a year. This gets rid of that. So, for example, on Saturday with the boat race and the block party, you'd be able to just walk around in that area with your cup, and nobody had to spend all that money and all those resources on putting up the ugly orange snow fence. Does that make sense? So the last thing I wanted to do, and we've been blowing through this pretty quickly, is just kind of look at the maps that I proposed, maybe suggest whatever edits may be necessary. For example, Moose Lodge, it's barely outside of it, so I don't know if we want to like throw them in just to be nice. Or Chickpea, I think serves alcohol, and they're just outside of it too. I might be forgetting other places, but I don't know. What are your guys' thoughts? Yes, Anna. Yes, Anna. Yeah.
Hi, I just have a question. How did you come up with these two maps?
These two were in conversation with city department heads.
Okay.
So, like boat races, we would want it here.
Sure.
I'm using Pride as an example. Obviously, that's not a city event. That would make it easier around here. And then, like for the other events that we have at North Park Pavilion, it would just be easier there. From a tourist perspective, it'd be nice to just be able to have, this is where you would do that. That's where tourists are.
Yeah, I noticed that it didn't cross 12, which I get for sure. But there's like a chunk, clearly, that I'm concerned about, because I run bridges not included. And then I'm curious about the reasoning why it goes so far up Lake Shore.
The beach, it's just on the beach.
Oh, so people
Yeah.
could walk from Fish Camp up the beach, got it. I
Yeah.
wasn't thinking like that, I was thinking Lake Shore Drive.
And then with the state and how they wrote the law, it might have to include Lakeshore Drive just because it's bound by street addresses.
I
So they might
simply-
change a little bit just
I
to
wasn't
fit
thinking about
the,
walking on the beach, and that makes sense.
yeah, right.
I have a question that it doesn't really concern me because I see I'm there, but yeah, why isn't Bridges and Medion, but you're giving Leeds a temporary, they already have a business up downtown.
Yeah. So for Pride, they handle the liquor license. So for various events up at the Guy Foreman Amphitheater,
Okay.
that would be whose name would show up there. Thank you for asking that. That is confusing.
Yeah, there are a few, sorry to jump in, there are a few like standing long-term establishments that have paid their own personal money to buy their own and own outright their own liquor licenses. This is really first glance, I have not delved into these. I'm familiar with Dora's, I'm in support of them, as long as they're done right. But I feel like there are a few long-standing establishments that maybe could potentially be in a revamped before the math is done in the final,
Yeah.
you know, places who haven't gotten, you know,
One way to answer your question is that we're allowed to have 7 of these.
7 districts.
Yeah, and I don't know, I saw in Ohio that they have to have 4 businesses in the district.
Okay.
I don't know if that's the same in Indiana.
Michigan City could have 7?
You can have 7.
Wow.
So in Valpo, and they're not listed on the official list of DORAs yet, because this might not be a real thing where they might have messed it up or something. They also passed it in one meeting, which makes no sense to me. But they passed one just for journeymen in Valpo. So when I look at bridges, it makes a lot of sense for your guys' layout to maybe have your own DORA out of the 7, but that's a thought.
There's like a strip, and maybe I'm not looking at it right, but, and I don't know how any of these other owners or managers feel, but just in my first thought, it kind of looked like Shoreline, Galveston, Mady's, Bridges were all excluded, and like, we've all been there and paid for our liquor licenses. And
Yeah.
put in a lot of work, responsible work, you know?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I would like to maybe see us all have the option if we want it.
So if you did that, and it was in between the two, can you go in between, can you cross over? Or
That's a really good
can you all
question.
be included? I don't know.
I don't think you can go out of the line, right? So
I don't know.
I think there'd be a fence post with like, don't leave the DORA and don't leave the DORA on it.
It seems weird.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think you wanted to cross 12 anyway.
Yeah, that's the thing. And the courthouse and the library make a nice buffer there too. And the post office, they're not walkable spaces. That's another answer to your question, is that these are one of the more walkable spaces.
Sure.
Like, I'm a big walker and I'll walk all the way to Bridges, and I have to go through a lot of weeds to get there. Burnham is also right there. I don't know if you'd ever want to throw the casino on this list, but
Well, I-
not as walkable.
Right, I understood the crossing of 12 part, but like to tie in the little Second Street corridor with the lakefront kind of is just something that I,
Yeah. Just, do other people have thoughts about that?
Makes sense.
Makes sense. Yeah,
Throwing in Bridges and,
makes sense.
yeah,
Shoreline.
Humanesnik is right there.
Bridges, Shoreline, Galveston, Mady's are the 4 that popped in. my head.
Yeah, with
Well,
12
when you
big
get to
orders.
Center Street, you're gonna have that new coffee shop wine bar, right? And you have
Valley
the other
Front.
restaurant that's there.
Are they gonna be a wine bar?
I think the plan eventually is to have that coffee shop slash restaurant.
Okay, yeah, he's referring to the new coffee shop over here, which also includes Cool Runnings. I don't know if we'd throw Cool Runnings on this,
Well, that's
make
what
it small for the 12. Then we start having neighborhoods in this, and I don't know how they would feel about that, but they're all from Chicago and they'd probably like it.
But are you doing
Daisy.
it on Franklin Street? That's what
Is there a maximum amount of establishments that can be in one section?
Not that I've seen.
Okay. Is there a limitation on acreage that can be covered? I saw that for like Ohio or Michigan.
I have not seen that in the statute. I want to go back and check though, just to be
Okay.
sure.
Yeah, because if we start building one that's like all of downtown plus north of 12, we might run into acreage problems. But I don't know. So it sounds like there's interest of making it all of north of 12. That's a generous way to say that.
Yeah, I don't think you should, once again, I don't know, my name's on that map, but I don't think you should exclude any of the long-standing businesses like Bridges and like Galveston and Mady's or Shoreline, you know. And I'm interested just because I think we've all seen the bicycles rolling around town, right? What's the name of it?
Joyride.
Joyride. But, I can tell you right now, next summer, I'm deploying these low-speed vehicles here, New Buffalo, and Saugatuck. I have my own app, it's just like Uber or Lyft, where people will be able to hail these. They look like similar to golf carts, but they're actually licensed for the street. So I would just be curious, because then if you bought a drink at fish camp, because you're not driving that vehicle, you're gonna get in it just like the bicycle. Can they deliver you over to Bridges for, you know, maybe they had a drink on her patio, but want to go over there for dinner and, you know, moving people about.
You get your issues there with the open container law, you get your issues. If you're going into a street licensed vehicle, you cannot have an open container. That's state law. So that will
that answers that.
ordinance.
Okay. Yes, Dr. Correa.
Are we going to ask the businesses whether they want to participate and be in the DORA, or are we just assigning them?
You said it was an application, right?
So Saturday, I was able to canvass some of the downtown ones and the ones on the lakefront. The only one on this list I don't think I've made it to is Sunset Grill, but they're getting ready for boat races, so I think they'd swear at me if I tried to talk to them right now. I forgot your question.
The question was, are we going to assign all of them into these DORAs, or are we going to ask them whether they want to participate in it?
So they have to apply. So there's a process of them asking to be in it, and then the ones who aren't in it, or like, so maybe I'm trying to get a fake name of a store on Franklin Street doesn't want to be in it. So they just have to have a sign that says no alcohol allowed. But they can also just say when somebody walks into the cup, like no outside food or drink. There's nothing to not participate, and then participating is just getting the sign, doing the application, getting the sign, and then buying a sleeve of cups. Unless we do what Mr. Kolavik suggested.
Greg, wasn't there one, you showed me a picture, you had one from Warsaw where they did, so.
I did, and then it was from Winona Lake, and yeah. So Winona Lake, they're rolling theirs out. They've got the signs out and everything, but no one's like ready to sell. I don't think they have the street signs. I think that's the last thing they're waiting on. And theirs is super small and doesn't include the neighborhood, so it's literally, I don't know if you know Winona Lake, but it's just a boathouse and then the gift store next door. So you can take your drink over there. So like if you're at Stray Dog would be an example, you can go to the short stop. Wow, words are leaving me right now.
The shirt store.
Yeah, so there's Winona Lakes is really small and just it works for the restaurant that's there. For a town of 1,500 people. Yeah, Scott.
These are designated areas, and we're not going to be able to include every establishment that sells alcohol. One, especially to start with. We can start small. If it's a successful program with a few negative things, it can be expanded in the future, in my opinion. Also, I've walked to the lakefront from 4th Street from the library. It'd be nice if there was a connector, because I don't know if Mady's is in that one or not, for example. But it would be nice to be able to walk to the lakefront from Franklin. Not many people walk that far, but it's really not that far. It takes like 5 or 10 minutes. And if you're out for a nice summer stroll, enjoying a glass of wine or your beer or something, and that's a natural place to walk. So it'd be nice if you could do it without violating the law. Because now, as we've said, people can drink out of their own, people drink. People are going to drink. This is a way of, registered places selling a container that people can leave the establishment with. And, downtown restaurants aren't inexpensive in comparison to other places. I mean, I see it as more of kind of your wine and cheese group and draft beer people. I mean, we're not going to have a lot of people online are worried that it's going to become New Orleans and stuff like that. I don't think that, I personally don't see that happening. And we are trying to go a little more upscale. And I think this is one of the things, this is like an amenity for people, for responsible drinkers. And of course, this is only for responsible drinkers. All the current rules of, if it's not in one of these designated cups, you're not allowed to walk around with open alcohol. But people can do that now anyway. Unfortunately, classically, unhoused people can drink out of a paper bag. It's not visible, right? Isn't that the thing? So, yeah. we're not gonna solve any of society's issues, but I think, we can start small. If it's successful, can always be expanded. We don't want to exclude our longtime people like Bridges, but they're really not connected to anything either. They're sort of, unfortunately, they're kind of off the path. But get the camel's nose under the tent, and then we can see if it expands in the future.
Yeah.
I'll kind of piggyback off that. I do think it would be nice if there would be a way to connect Franklin Street to the beach, because I think those are our two big areas where locals and tourists like to visit. So having 12 be that almost kind of division point, I don't know if that's really gonna address the concerns that we really have. I mean, because like you said, Dora ends here, Dora starts here. We're just gonna pound it back and cross the street, so I mean, just.
Garbage can.
Yeah, garbage cans.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with what this young lady here is saying about connecting the downtown with the lakefront. If this passes and it goes through, to me, that would be one continuous path, that if you want to go from Leeds or the Ritz Club, walk down to the beach with your beer, then you can do it. I mean, just because Highway 12's there, people walk across Highway 12 all day long. So I don't see what the issue is there. But I think it should be included from top to bottom. And then another question I had, this is a question I've gotten a few emails about and discussions, is that, okay, if the Dora's in the downtown area, and you get a cup from say you're at the Ritz Club, you get your cup, you get a beer in it, and who says that you have to go into another establishment in the downtown area to get that cup filled up again? I mean, you could walk around the building, if your car's parked down there, and just fill your cup up all night long, you just keep walking around. I guess my point is, so who's gonna police something like that? And I know it can't be the Michigan City Police, because they don't have time to mess around with looking at paper or plastic cups on a Friday night to see if there's a symbol on it of what restaurant it's coming from. But that's my concern is, hopefully, and I know this is all in its infancy in the state of Indiana. Other communities may say it's been successful, and I don't know what successful means to them. But that's just my concern. Who's going to police these rules and regulations, especially with filling your cup back up whenever you want to, instead of going back into a tavern? Because one of the purposes of this is to promote business, correct? You go from the Ritz Club, drink it, go to Leeds, if you can drink it that fast, if you want to chug it. But you know what I mean? Yeah, it's all about going into the businesses and getting a refill. So that was just something I've been thinking about, and some people have been talking to me about.
That's been the question I've been getting from a lot of people. And the disappointing answer is that there's really no way for the police to be on every corner making sure that nobody's refilling in their car.
I feel like that's the 1% of riffraff that.
I think so too.
I really think that's, those are the people that you see already. I pick up beer bottles of brands I don't sell every morning from Fisherman or whatever, but I absolutely agree with what he's saying, and it's gonna happen, but I do believe that's a fraction of what we're looking at.
Yeah, the beer you're gonna buy at Fish Camp is a lot colder than any beer in your car.
And I think the businesses are gonna self-police that, because we're not gonna let people sit around. If you're gonna notice that they're going in and out, they're not buying a drink, you're not gonna take up table space, so there's gonna be a lot of that is self-policed. Because you're going to pay attention. You're leaving every 5 minutes and you come in with a full cup, it's not gonna fly.
Yeah.
Whether it's Ritz Pub or
Well, you can't bring alcohol in the restaurant to begin with, so I believe, a door, you're not gonna go in and out your front door. You're gonna take a drink and you're gonna go, but you're not coming in and out. They would have to leave their drink in to go outside and have a cigarette and come back in to get their drink, but they're not gonna be coming in and out with a full Dora cup. I wouldn't allow it.
You're touching something too that I like, is that this allows somebody sitting at the bar to actually take their drink out with them when they have a cigarette.
Yeah.
Because that worries a lot of people sometimes.
Yeah, I don't like it, and I wouldn't allow it personally.
Yeah.
Brian, you're saying out
Yeah,
there,
real quick.
saying this allows people to take the drink with them because an unintended drink has other problems.
I understand, but in my restaurant,
Yeah.
you're taking it to go.
Yeah.
You're not going and walking and talking and coming back in with a full cup. I would have my hostess monitoring that.
Right.
Yeah, so now, if this passes, when would this go into effect next year? I mean, this is gonna be, with all the questions, obviously it's not gonna be a quick turnaround for us to do. And what I'm saying is, I'm hearing a lot of the concerns, and it sounds like we're gonna have all winter, to work on a lot of this stuff.
It could even be a soft release in the fall, and then slowly through the winter, people kind of get used to it. Like a Chris Kingle market might be one of the first things. It might be done in time for Oktoberfest. Yeah, I got to talk to the state rep that passed this, and he said that they've been really quick about turning it around.
Okay.
As soon as the city council has it and sends the whole complete correct package down to the state, it's underway.
All right, I was just about to say that some of that is dependent upon the state, because the Michigan City ordinance is just the first piece. Then it has to go down to the state to be approved. And then the city of Michigan City has some other things that they have to get together. What the door symbol is going to be, getting the signage up, all of that. So it's going to be contingent on more than just the passing of the ordinance.
Right.
Because if everything gets up, but the signage doesn't go up, it can't happen until all of those pieces are in place.
Yeah, that was my experience in Winona Lake, where the restaurant was a lot faster than the city was. And they were ready to go, but the city still had to put the signs up, so the restaurant had to wait for them. Just, the steps are all in a row. Yes, Tim?
If this goes into place, there's a whole lot of intersections there. They're gonna have signs that say you're at the end of the door. What happens with all these plastic cups? Are we gonna have trash cans at all these intersections?
There generally are. Daisy's so excited to respond to this.
I am. So Skylar and I actually talked about this. We're looking into getting some recycling bins at the end where each sign is, and ensuring that those cups, I looked at the cups as they pass by, they're all #1 plastic, which means they are recyclable. So ensuring the cups that are provided are recyclable, and then providing recycling bins and garbage cans at the end of each.
And maybe those could double as the sign itself. If that was in Fort Wayne, they have it as the sign itself. And when you come to the end of the door.
That's a good idea.
Sounds very permanent. Yeah.
Please recycle.
Yeah, but I just want to mention that the recycling portion is good, okay? We're all about recycling. I can guarantee you, the Michigan City Refuse Department is not going to recycle plastic containers. And yeah, they wrap it up, they throw it in the back of the truck, and that's the end of it. Now, if there's going to be a special designee of somebody like that we're going to send around on Monday morning to pick up plastic cups, that might be something that has to be thought over on how those particular containers are going to be picked up. Yeah, but I wouldn't rely on the Michigan City Refuse Department to recycle the containers.
It's a whole project I'm working on to get recycling bins throughout the city, so that this would be part of that whole project. So, yeah.
If I just may ask, in regards to that project, is that from grant funds or something that will have to come for the city for?
I'm looking at grants, yeah.
So, the lady whose name I don't know, and then we'll go to Scott.
Deb?
Hi, Deb.
Hi. Just for clarification, because I kind of missed a little bit. If I buy a drink at Leeds and then I want to go across the street to Fiddleheads, I can carry that drink in that special cup over to Fiddleheads, but when I go into Fiddleheads, I cannot take that drink into Fiddleheads.
Correct.
And then if I want to go back on the street again, I have to purchase a drink with that glass from Fiddleheads, then I can wander some more. But I can't then turn around and go into Bricks with alcohol in my cup. Is that right?
Whatever you say it, like you finish your meal at Leeds, and then you want to walk over to Fiddleheads, you get a drink there.
I don't carry I carry my empty cup, perhaps,
Okay.
or throw it away. But I don't walk around and go into a new business with my drink from the other place, or do I?
You would not. No business is gonna allow that, yeah. They want you to spend money there.
And, well, and they want to be able to give you their own cup and no.
Or you could walk into Good Vintage and Unsalted or whatever, that's the idea for
Thank
First
you,
Friday.
yes, exactly,
And
yeah.
there's, the places I'm going to don't really know how many drinks I have had from other places, but, we're hoping that the staff recognizes.
Right, we never do, you know, that's on us to judge your
Sure, you're doing that, I think.
That's my one question, well, and I have one more.
Okay, thank you, yeah.
And that is there any concern for the message that this might send young people when we're having family events, boat parade? You know, we've tried very hard to give messages to our middle schoolers, our high schoolers about refraining from the influence of alcohol and drugs. While alcohol is legal, is there any concern how making this more present when they're present and not in a contained area? What kind of message that might send in regards to let's be clean and let's be sober?
My quick answer for that is that a lot of this doesn't change what's going on, it just changes where. So if those kids are at Leeds or at Fiddlehead or Fish Camp, we keep using this example, they're still seeing it happen at those events like the boat parade. There's still the beer garden. So they're still seeing it happen there. And kids are allowed in the beer garden, just not in the specific corner where they're selling the alcohol. So not a lot changes there. I don't know if that's a good answer.
And honestly, as a parent, I mean, my children either saw me drink or did not see me drink. That was up to me to parent my children. If I took, does that make sense? If I took them outside to a restaurant and I had a beer, I also taught them moderation.
Not all parents do that.
No, but
And so,
we can't.
and so as a community and as citizens, we are modeling for the children. And it's not personal, it's more of a community or a concern for what the message that we might be giving the young people. I just wondered if anyone had.
Well, and the law changed last year, right? Kids under 21, under 18 could be at bars as long as you're not along the rail. So a lot of ways we're behind the times in terms of where you can do.
Vic, you've been really patient.
So I know we haven't talked about it, but just kind of to the recycling and everything. Who says it's gotta be a cheap plastic cup we're throwing out? Why couldn't you do a stadium cup? Now, I can't speak for every bar and business owner, but if you left Fish Camp and came to my boat with an empty cup, a nice souvenir cup, and it's empty, why wouldn't I fill it for you? Why would we just chucking out this plastic everywhere you go?
That's a good answer. It might not be in the state statute too, but I love the idea.
Well, and then the other thing, because we didn't talk about that, I don't want to put the cart in front of the horse, but the whole cup thing, you know, it's not, I don't know if everybody knows that, everybody's not going out and buying their own cup. There's one central point that will sell us all these cups. We don't get to each order our own, through our own vendors. It's one entity that will be selling these cups.
Mm-hmm.
No entity is going to sell you something at cost or lose money. So I'll just, for even math, let's say the cups cost $30 for a case of 1,000 printed. And they're selling them to us for $60, which is cheaper than anybody's buying a case of 1,000 cups, I can tell you that right now. Who says that we can't use a portion of that profit for social programs, for doing things, for educating about liquor or whatever we want to do with it? Because you're going to have to create an entity to sell these cups. We don't each get to go out and buy our own cups from our distributors at Doro.
Yeah.
I was wondering, is there any, like, with these areas that are gonna be part of Dora, is there any, like, additional kind of, like, financial gain to that, where you could, like, for example, make this area more walkable? Like, do we get any sort of, like, tax incentive or grant opportunities, like, for these areas if we wanted to connect Franklin Street to the beach?
I am not sure if I understand your question.
I don't think so. I don't think there are. I can tell you that we did submit a grant for the plaza on Franklin Street at 7th Street. We're waiting to hear back hopefully in the fall, but we're also looking at some other opportunities off of Pine Street and things that we can do to connect the train station to the national park and to the lakefront. So I don't think it's really connected to Dora per se, but we are looking at opportunities downtown grant-wise.
Greg?
Yeah, Scott.
So, I'm all for it. I think it's a civilized thing. And not to add to the burden of our already very burdened regulatory environment for our business owners, would there be any application for your permit fee to be a DORA participant? Because if there were some funds coming in that could help fund the signage, the recycling bin cleanup, things of that nature, that's one point. And the second point, society is filled with bad influences, and the best modeling of all is just responsible behavior. When you prohibit something, it becomes a forbidden fruit, which leads to other problems. The best teacher is responsible behavior, in my opinion. We can't protect our children from all the ills of society. What we can do is model responsible behavior to teach them.
Yeah.
The world has different things going on in the world that we can do at home.
Is there a permit fee? I didn't look.
Not unless we're going on it, right?
I'm just asking.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct, that's up to
Okay. Do any of the
I
other
like the
cities?
idea of charging for signs, because that helps pay for signs. Those are the two expenses, yeah, signs and cuts.
Are the other cities, do you know if they're
I could ask. True, when you talked around, did you hear anything about other cities giving a permit fee?
I have heard of permitting fees. I've heard of not only that, but the city itself being the cup vendor. And obviously that, using that as a revenue source as well. There's a lot of ways for the city to generate revenue based on this.
So in the last couple of minutes, I just want to go back to that question of the hours. So would it make more sense to start at 10 a.m. when Lee's opens for brunch? Or do we want to wait till 2 in the afternoon? Is there a consensus that we can go to?
I think that's a fair
Yeah.
window. Yep.
We're not a late night place.
Yeah.
We need people
And
to.
nothing good happens after midnight.
Right,
So,
yeah.
It's not those outside ones at 8 anyway.
Wind them down.
Just in talks of the hours, and I don't even know if Bridges will be included, I don't care, but just doesn't it make sense to do whatever is like the opening hour of most places so that it's less like, Nicole, sorry, but less stress on your bartenders to look for when it turns noon? You know what I mean?
I love that,
Yeah, but
yeah.
then, there's other late night bars that,
Would have
are serving
to-
until 3 in the morning, so I don't believe that should be part of the window.
Grocery stores and handle.
Well, yeah, I guess it's true.
So opening during the day is it like come off night?
Like, looking at that, having a bartender have to like look at their.
Yeah, I think, you know what I mean, responsible drinking from opening time to 10 or 11
Right, that's what I
or
was.
12 or whatever, you know what I mean?
Grocery stores can handle Sundays, not selling anything for you.
Right.
It's very easy.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's a really good point, thank you for sharing that, is that bartenders don't want to check their clock, say at 2 o'clock and start wondering if it's almost 3. That would be frustrating for them and a burden on them that I wouldn't want to put on them. But they can start checking their clock around 10 p.m. That's not bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
kitchen's closed, you're
Yeah,
cranking a door out,
they're
yeah.
ready to go home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you have different hours of operations on different days, or does it have to be straight?
I think you keep it simple.
Straight simple, yeah.
Especially
Skylar.
I mean, hearing Councilman President Wilson's comments, I mean, we looked at 12 as kind of I don't see it as a barrier. It's really more of a perceived barrier because there are crosswalks there, there's trails, and there's all these different ways. I mean, does it make sense just to have the Dora and have all that into the Dora and then expand it to encompass bridges? And I guess I would look back to Mr. Attorney Rags that I don't know if there's rules on size and square footage and what all their acreage, but it sounds like there's some pretty good reasons to make it where you can walk, what Scott said, from downtown to, if that's what you want to do.
Yeah. So how's the room feel about that? Expanding it, or combining it rather, would be the better way to say it.
I agree.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I'm just asking the question because we thought it was, I mean, 12's always seen as a barrier. I think it's more like a perceived than it is actually.
So one of the experiences I had when I was on the phone with Councilman Lee about this is that when I'm walking downtown, and I started with Good News Vintage, and I kind of worked down, I went back, like there weren't a ton of people downtown on a really beautiful sunny Saturday. Okay, so that could be a big part of it, is they're home grilling or something and not out shopping on a Saturday. That's you saw Saturday, it was gorgeous. And then I get over to go talk to Vic and Nicole, and it's crowded, everybody's there, there's no parking, it's awesome. And so this could be a really good opportunity to kind of bridge those two spaces where we've got our doors over on the lakefront, and so this is unhinged and not in order. But when I was in grad school, there were like people would talk about Michigan City, and they're like, "Oh, fish camp, we love fish camp." So people from Chicago are driving here to go to fish camp, and they don't know to Google these places south of town. So that could really work out. That by going to some of these places that you know of, people come drive to go to Vic's things all the time. You get that cup that has a map on it, and you're like, "We could go downtown sometime." That works out. That could be one way for us to share the wealth a bit. Get people to start thinking about going to Bricks and Leeds and everywhere else too. Yeah.
Yeah, make a trifold that shows all the members, you know, and go see, you know,
Yeah.
who to visit.
Yeah.
Or there it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now you're talking about making that one door?
I think that's what the room has decided, yeah. Zara.
Still leaves you room then for 6
I don't know
more
if it's anything that we can,
should you want to open up more areas.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's anything we can do, but can we like, let's say take one color, let's say it's hot pink or something like that, where it's very like, you can see the color and just maybe like go to every single like light post or something like that, and then just kind of paint it a little bit so you know what the district lines are, or like you can actually drink there. If it's not that
We'll have
color,
to
then
take
you're
that back.
outside of that.
That's interesting, yeah. Something that makes it more of a district, yeah.
I mean, you can do a sign too, but, you know, at least you know that once you're past this point, you can't,
Yeah.
you can't drink. It's the Dora thing, just like, you know,
Yeah, because we'll have the signs out there,
Yeah.
and they're not intrusive. I mean, you see them, and you know, and also the bartender told you not to go past Washington or Pine.
Yeah.
And
The
the
QR code takes them to a map too that shows the
Yeah. Yeah. I would give anything to not have a QR code on it, but it sounds like that's just the world we live in.
But having the map out tough would be helpful for.
Yeah, and we saw that one go around. Did you see that house?
You know what?
Dude,
Everything's
Yeah.
So there comes,
they've got logos on them.
Yeah.
Got a map.
The only thing I would say is that, I'm not interested in a whole lot of signs, but, we can come up with some creative ways of doing some things. We're gonna be, you know, redoing, you know, Franklin Street, and maybe there's some interesting curve things or something that, you know, we can do with crosswalks or something.
Yeah.
But, I don't want 1,000 signs on Franklin. So we'll have to figure something out.
Good job, Greg.
Thanks, Scott.
Greg, I do have one
Yeah.
question.
And Judy.
So ours is an event space, and it is event driven, and we're not open as a restaurant, we are not open. How would that apply to us? We wouldn't have designated hours, we wouldn't be open from midnight to midnight, or
Yeah.
noon to midnight, or whatever
So-
it is. It would be event driven.
So maybe like that cigarette example where somebody wants to take you got that little patio out
Yeah,
in
we
the middle though, so that's a great example, but going back and forth between the venue and
I was
the,
talking specifically the hours.
okay,
What are our limitations or requirements? Do we have to, I mean, we would deal with them, we're closed by 10 o'clock on most public events.
yeah.
But that would be fluctuating. Ours would not be consistent hours based on the restaurant.
The ordinance has to be written with one set of hours.
Gotcha.
So if we do noon, or if we do right before businesses start so that people aren't watching the clock with the bartender at Bridges making sure that it's not 11, it's noon or something, we would start at 11, I think. Because that's a lot to ask a lot of bartenders.
So other businesses don't have to be open at 11 to actually.
Correct,
That's
yeah.
my question.
Yeah, so you open up for the one event you have that month and you're fine, yeah.
Gotcha,
You can still participate in the door.
Woo,
It took me a minute,
That's
it's
awesome.
like I've been talking for an hour straight.
All right, that was
Okay.
good. Thank you so much.
Someone had a question. No, we've made it through all the questions. Cool, looks like I'm gonna redraw the map. Are we still thrilled about 11th Street as opposed to throwing in the Moose Lodge? I feel bad that they're just watching it. Throwing Chickpea, I don't know about that. That adds a lot more signs.
No, it's to the
Yeah.
train station to the beach, that's a long zone.
And then for over here, this is not a good map.
So let me ask about the temporary vendors then. So they have to be within, they can be a temporary vendor as long as they're within that DORA? So they can't be outside of the DORA and utilize that?
And so 2 answers to your question. So like, Good News Vintage like to participate in First Friday, so they would get a temporary permit and participate that way.
But they have to be within
the DORA. And then for special events on the beach, like for example Pride, Leeds does the whole work on the permit, so that's them over there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Guys, Attorney Rez, how complicated is it to amend the DORA? Is it just simply a council amendment? We start seeing businesses on, say, Wabash want to participate or something?
Yeah, the DORA map can be amended, the same way the zoning map and all that can be amended. It's amended by council ordinance. If there are businesses that wanted to be included that weren't on the original permittee list, then they would just simply apply. And that wouldn't have to go back before the council to be approved. Once the actual DORA is approved, then you have the permitting process, and that wouldn't have to be amended by the
Does it have to go back to state then, or is it just on the council to approve it once it's approved?
Whether or not an amendment to the map would have to go back to state, I would have to find that out. Because I actually don't think anybody has amended their map yet. Because this is a really, really new concept.
Right.
So, that's a great question, though, Scott.
I'm just curious, like, how complicated, or do you go ahead and add in chickpea, you know? I just think that was a good question to make.
Especially when we're drawing it this way.
This Bricks is there.
Yeah, Bricks is over there, yeah, so that's within Washington. If we added Wabash, that would get shorelined too. And then you'd be able to walk to the outlet mall, and then you throw it away right away when you got there.
I'm not
That's what the meeting
advocating
say
for
to
it,
it.
I'm just asking what's the complications of amendments?
You know, I would be inclined to say that you don't need to go back to state once you have the DORA approved to make an amendment to the DORA, because what the state is doing is they're verifying that your ordinance is proper pursuant to state statute. And whereas you would have your map boundaries pursuant to your ordinance, as long as you have the proper map boundaries, I don't think the state would have an issue. I can't say that for sure, but I'm inclined to say that once the state gives you the approval, you're approved through the state and you can make the amendments as you see fit.
That makes sense, because they've created the legislation.
One last thing, one concern I think the lady behind me has is that if we have one big one or even two, there's the possibility for up to 7 in our town. I think most of us recognize there's really no place else in town where this would be appropriate.
Between Knuckleheads and Stadium, and I think that's the only other place you might walk.
Again, we can't include everybody that has a liquor license.
Yeah.
This is a designated downtown zone with our lakefront. You know, in the future, if the prison is redeveloped or Marquette Mall is redeveloped into a multi-residential entertainment district, there's the potential for something in those zones, but that doesn't exist yet. This is the only place at this time it makes sense to me. I would think you guys would probably agree with that. So I don't think we have to worry about, you know, all of a sudden we've got outdoor drinking areas all over the city.
So there's some really cool things that people have been like building and anticipating with this. And what the hell is on the screen? Excuse me. That was weird.
Watch your tabs.
Yeah.
Don't want some surprise.
Yeah, Isabel's computer. Anyways, so this is not pulling up what I'm trying to pull up. But so in Mishawaka, there is a venue that the city built right on the waterfront, and then you can go to Sun King and get a beer, and then somebody else can go over to the burger place to get your burgers, and then somebody else who really wants a margarita can go stand in the line for the margaritas, and you all go back to your table, and you've supported 3 different businesses, plus whatever band you're gonna go see. It's some cool stuff. So the end result of this is really cool. When I was in Montreal, where it was a nice Catholic city in Canada, you could do anything. So you could go to the barbecue place, leave them your ID, check out a picnic basket, get a carafe of cocktail and your basket of barbecue, and go hang out in the park and have a nice picnic and not sit in some weird restaurant, and yeah, total privacy or whatever you want to have in that park instead of just in a crowded restaurant. There's some cool things that you can do with this.
do you deal with the ordinances that are already in place or have you, I don't know,
We'll just amend them.
prohibit?
Should this pass, we'll just amend them. That'll be a
So
process.
you have to amend old ones. You can't just say, oh, we're making this new one. I don't know how the system works.
Step by step, yeah. That'll be just one of the steps.
With the exception of the Dora district.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Scott said that we would just have, like, we would just add, with the exception of the Dora. Right, yeah.
There's only currently one ordinance that I can think of that would need to be amended, and by the plain text of the ordinance, this would be fine, because the ordinance says that it's not to conflict with anything allowable by state law. The doors are allowable by state law, but just for clarity purposes, so that everybody doesn't have to be a lawyer trying to interpret the ordinances, you would add, and I have actually an example of it. I was going to, I'm sorry if I'm getting ahead of you here, Councilman Colton, because I was going to show this to you after the door meeting. It's particularly section 78.6 in the municipal code, where a simple sentence is added that states, or within the boundaries of any designated outdoor refreshment area, which is a exception to the drinking in public and private areas ordinance.
So wasn't there the ordinance that related to Washington Park parking lot or Washington Park and the California Street parking lot in 1989, and it was posted, and it was about not having alcohol in your vehicles and all that kind of stuff. Is that still an ordinance that's in place and that has to be?
It is, but that ordinance has an exception already built in for something of this nature.
Thank you.
Awesome. Any questions before we call it a day?
Just
Yes.
one last thing, I would propose for whatever restaurant or bar is gonna participate in this, it wouldn't be a bad idea to get a survey monkey together of like pertinent questions and get people's thoughts, but I know not everyone is represented here tonight.
Yeah.
And just to put the info out, have some questions where you would like input on. I'm still not opposed to the Stadium Cup for recyclable and nature's purposes and
Yeah.
garbage pickup and all of that. Stadium Cup, every bar to be the health department coded, it has to have a 3 compartment sink when you're washing, disinfecting and rinsing. And in my small bar, it's right there. If somebody walks up, you can go 1, 2, 3 and the cup is sanitized. So it's just a thought, you know, and that's my opinion, but you know, others might have different opinions. So as you progress on this, it wouldn't be a bad idea to maybe get a survey monkey out there to see what people's opinions are. If it's a total pain in the butt to do or not, you know, you gotta weigh your positive outcomes, you know, on what you decide.
Awesome. Nancy and then Brian.
Yeah, I would also say I would, in that Survey Monkey, find out when the establishment's open, like Weeds, so
Yeah.
they open at 10. I wouldn't want them having to wait around till 11 or noon to start the process.
Yeah.
So I think that would be a good way to capture that in
Yeah.
so.
Brian.
And no question, no comment about the whole ordinance. I just want to tell you, man, good job doing all the research to present this to the people. This is pretty good, man. You did a lot for that.
Thank you.
Yeah.